the podcast, the Getting Life to Work podcast. I am your host, Christy Narcy, and super excited, always excited. I think I probably say super excited at the beginning of every episode, but I'm excited. I'm really grateful that you're here. And we are talking about emotional maturity today. And I want you to raise your level of emotional maturity. Here's what I know. Nothing has helped me more in life than increasing my emotional intelligence level, my emotional maturity. It's not, to be honest with you, while everything we do to increase emotional maturity is biblical, absolutely, it's not the study of the Bible that has made my emotional intelligence go up. It's the application of what I've read. It's the application. It's applying it to life, getting it to work in life. It's not just knowing the scripture, it's putting it to work. And one of the things that we do, one of the ways we do that, and we're going to talk about today, is called the law of the mirror. It's called the law of the mirror. And this is from a curriculum that I studied a long time ago, and that I'm now licensed to teach you through the John Maxwell organization. And he has an amazing book with just laws of growth. These are laws. If you want to grow, you have to get these laws to work for you, not against you. The law of the mirror says you must see value in yourself and add value to yourself. See value in yourself and add value to yourself. It's a look in the mirror. The power of positive self-esteem. Yes, I know. There is many a Christian who freaks out whenever you say self-esteem. They don't want you to esteem yourself. Well, I got news for you. Even Jesus said, you can't love others if you don't love yourself. What else is self-esteem? It's personal esteem. Do I put personal value on me? Self-esteem is the single most significant key to a person's behavior. It's your behavior. Zig Ziglar once said, it's impossible to consistently behave in a manner inconsistent with how we see ourselves. We can do very few things in a positive way if we feel negative about ourselves. Low self-esteem puts a ceiling on our potential. It just does. The value we place on ourselves is usually the value others place on us. It is. If you place a small value on yourself, rest assured, the world will not raise the price. They won't do it for you. The reason that self-image is so important is because you will never rise higher than your self-image, than what you think and believe about yourself. All of our struggles, every challenge that you face always comes down to our sense of dignity and worth. Dignity. Dignity is our sense of self-respect, feeling right about ourselves. When this is right inside of us, we look in the mirror and we're able to see our identity and our authority in Christ. We're able to see ourselves the way he sees us. When we doubt our identity, that's when we start losing our footing. If you want to know the truth, that's actually real spiritual warfare. Are you going to lose your footing or not? Right? Because when you lose your footing, you're no longer established in who you are. Paul talks about putting on the armor of God. We can't put on the armor of God if we don't see ourselves as being in Christ. Paul talks about having our feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. The most important thing in battle is keeping your footing. You get knocked off your feet, it's over, right? Your footing is knowing that there is peace between you and God. The gospel of peace, from understanding the gospel of peace, the gospel Jesus taught, the covenant of peace. The gospel of peace says that whenever God looks at you, whenever God looks at me, all he sees is what looks like his son, Jesus. We've been taught that he sees filthy rags. Well, if that's what you think, then you miss the entire point of Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. He sees what looks like his son. That was the whole point. My sense of self comes from knowing I never have to try to become. I am not in a place where I have to function trying to become. I already am. Really, I'm just shedding off the layers that don't fit because I've already been made new. I'm a new creation, a new man. I received a new heart, and I'm just learning how to function in it. I don't always get that right. The sense of self, a strong sense of self, comes from knowing that I'm never having to try to become. And as soon as I'm trying to become, I'm striving. And the one thing we were told never, ever, ever to strive, or the only thing we were told to strive for, is to enter into rest. That's the only thing we're allowed to strive for. Why? Well, when I have a strong sense of self-identity, when I have a strong sense of dignity and worth, I'm in rest. I just am, right? I'm not questioning who I am. I'm not questioning if I have resources. I'm not questioning if I'm in lack. Dignity and worth comes from knowing that I live from a place of already being. I start from a place of rest. So if you have a high self-image, a high sense of dignity and worth, you will invest in yourself. You will. You'll increase in knowledge. You'll increase in wisdom. You will increase in emotional maturity. You'll grow because you know that because God made you, you're worth growing and expanding. You're worth it. You will add value to yourself. But if you have a low self-image, you will sell yourself short. And guess what? Others are going to sell you short too. A high self-esteem is really key to motivation. A psychiatrist named Nathaniel Branden said this. He said, no factor is more important in people's psychological development and motivation than the value judgments they make about themselves. Every aspect of their lives is impacted by the way they see themselves. Imagine that. No factor more important to your motivation in life than your self-image. To be motivated in life, you have got to have a high self-image. Otherwise, you're just not going to be motivated. You're not going to be motivated to add value to yourself, to grow. So self-image is so important. So you've got to guard it. You've got to guard it. You have got to build it. You've got to build your self-image. It takes intentionality. One of the ways that you do that is by guarding your self-talk, right? At the end of the day, the most important conversation you have every day is the one you have with yourself. It really is. You need to talk to yourself. You need to encourage yourself. You need to build yourself up on the inside. You need to stir up your spirit. And when you're doing this, you need to be agreeing with God about what he thinks. See, God can talk to you during the day and you can say a bunch of prayers, but if you're not talking to yourself the way God would talk to you, you're losing your foothold. That's why I would say talking to yourself is probably more important than talking to God, because you've got to catch what you're saying to yourself. You're probably not saying to yourself what God would say to you. We're so afraid. We're afraid of being prideful, right? We say if we're building ourselves up on the inside, that's pride. Well, let me tell you something. The world will cut you to the core on a daily basis. And if you don't punt that trash and use the antidote of positive input, you will become what you behold. You will hold on to what he said, she said about you, unless you punt it, unless you use the anecdote, positive input. What we say about ourselves, listen, we tend to believe. When we talk to ourselves, we tend to believe ourselves, right? What we believe, we tend to model, and what we model, we tend to become. It's a slippery slope, y'all. We already have authority and we have identity. We stand in righteousness and at peace with God. And because of that, we've got to learn to become our own best cheerleaders, our own best encouragers. You know, every time you choose discipline over indulgence, don't tell yourself that you should have done it anyway. Recognize how much you're helping yourself and not destroying yourself. Every time you do a good job, don't just let it pass. It's okay to give yourself a compliment. I'm telling you, you will not be able to rise higher than your ability to do this. And every time you make a mistake, man, this is something this is an area of struggle for me. I'll be honest with you. I make a mistake, and then all of a sudden, all of the stories of all the mistakes I've ever made just start replaying. The movies in my mind just start coming forward. And listen, a lot of you will say, oh, that's the devil starts telling me, reminding me. He's not the devil. I'm sorry to break that to you. I mean, unless you are actually demon possessed, it is not Satan putting those thoughts in your head. He can't put thoughts in your head. When you start replaying all of your mistakes, it's not Satan reminding you, it's you reminding you. And until you take ownership of that, you're not going to be able to raise your level of self-awareness, your level of self-respect, your dignity, your sense of dignity and worth. You're not going to be able to do it. So don't bring up what's wrong with you when you make a mistake. Tell yourself that you're just paying the price for growth and that you'll learn to do better next time, right? Every positive thing that you can say to yourself is going to help you. And stop listening to the voice that says you're being prideful. Okay? Prideful really is when you overestimate yourself. And I was just telling you right now, most of us just don't. That is why we are in the mental health crisis that we are in. I know this one, man. I'm telling you, I grew up in the church like you did. And we were always supposed to be careful about being proud. We were so careful about not having pride in our lives that we didn't even have self-respect. That's not okay. So stop saying I can't. Talking to yourself, stop saying I can't. No world record was ever set by someone who said, I can't do this. In their book called The Answer, businessmen authors John Arasaf and Murray Smith talk about the negative messages children receive growing up. And this is what they say. By the time you're 17 years old, you've heard, no, you can't, an average of 150,000 times. You've heard, yes, you can, about 5,000 times. That's 30 no's for every yes. And that makes for a very powerful belief of I can't. You've got to flip the script on this. Here's the truth. You're the only one responsible for ministering to your own heart. You're the number one responsible for ministering to your heart, to administering value to yourself. That's on you. Stop comparing yourself to others. This is another way that we build our self-image, our sense of dignity and worth. Making comparisons is an amazingly powerful attraction that is really just, it's an unneeded distraction to your own potential, really. You know, we say this, you hear this all the time in self-development. Stop comparing yourself. Listen, we can't overlook it. It's not trite. Here's what happens when you compare yourself to others. Either you perceive the other person to be far ahead of you and you feel discouraged, or you perceive yourself to be better than the other person, and that is when you become proud. Neither one of those is good for you. Comparison's not good. Neither one of those is going to help you grow. It's not going to raise your level of emotional maturity. Something else that you can do to guard your self-image, to build it, is to move beyond your own self-limiting beliefs. Charles Schwab said this: when a man puts a limit on what he will do, he places a limit on what he can do. So when it comes to believing in yourself, don't be an agnostic. That was funny. Okay. A little theology humor. Here's some steps to transforming limiting beliefs into empowering beliefs. Okay. First one, identify a limiting belief that you want to change. What's my limiting belief? I don't have enough resources. I don't have enough time, blah, 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 whatever it is, right? Number two, determine how that belief limits you. How's it limiting you? That belief has placed a limit, a boundary around you. What is that limit? Number three, decide how you want to act, feel, or think. Choose. How do you want to act, feel, or think today about this limiting, this goal you're trying to get to, but your belief won't let you get there? How do you want to feel? act, or think. And number 4, create a turnaround statement. Something that affirms or gives you the permission to act, feel, or think differently. Flip the script. You write the script this time. Intentionally write the script to transform limiting beliefs into beliefs that empower you. Do the right thing, even when it's a hard thing. This is another way that you are going to build your self-image. Do the right thing, even if it's the hard thing, because good character decisions increase your self-image more than any other kind of decision in your life. When you can walk away and say, I did the right thing. I had character. That's going to give you a proud sense of a self-image instead of being someone you can't be proud of, that people can't trust. You can't trust. Practice a small discipline daily in a specific area of your life. Another way to help you build on this. And I really like this. So don't underestimate the power of putting a small discipline into practice every single day. Here's what I mean. So let's say you want to increase your water intake. Okay, so you get a really cool water bottle off of Amazon, and you take your day planner and you start tracking the days that you have successfully taken in 8 ounces, or what is it? 8 times 8, 8 ounces of, or 8 glasses of 8 ounces of water, whatever it is. Anyway, that's probably just for my height. But anyway, so you do this for 3 days in a row, and you put a check for each day on your calendar that you did it, or you put a check for each 8 ounce, however you want to do it, right? But you're tracking. Okay, I've got the sun coming in on my face. Sorry, guys, it's kind of weird. We'll go over here. I can't see. I always forget that there's only certain times a day that I can do this without the sun coming straight through the window. Okay, so you're tracking, right? And you're putting a check for each day on your calendar, and then you've done that for 1 week. Then you've done it for 2 weeks, then 3 weeks, and so on. What you're doing, and it's a small thing, right? It's good for you to increase your water. Why wouldn't you want to increase your intake? But you're proving to yourself that you're a person of discipline, that you can discipline yourself. When you can be disciplined with one thing, you're no longer going to say to yourself, I never follow through. I could never do that. And then suddenly you can be disciplined with many things that add bigger amounts of value to your life. Exercise, health, whatever it might be. You've taken the excuse off the table and you've increased your self-image. 2 incredibly important things. Think about the opposite. The opposite's always also true. You decrease your self-image every time you say, I'm going to commit to this, and you don't. I know. It's tough. And you actually decrease your chances of ever doing it either. So really, really important to celebrate the small victories too, small disciplines and small victories. A great example of a small victory might be just, hey, be prepared. You might have heard this saying before, the most important meeting is the meeting before the meeting, right? Go into a meeting, show up prepared. When you walk into anything prepared, you're proving to yourself you're a person who's prepared for life. This takes intentionality, and it's so important. Preparation gives you the self-confidence, and it can relieve anxiety, right? This sense of satisfaction from knowing you went into something prepared will express to yourself that you are a person of preparation. Small victories. Celebrate them to begin increasing your self-image. Embrace a positive vision for your life based on what you value. Another way to build your self-image. What do you value? What's important to you? Create a positive vision for yourself around that. What does that look like? Who are you when you function in that? What will you look like when you're functioning in that? And here's something else. Practice the one-word strategy. This is something that will help you. It's created by Kevin Hall in his book, Aspire. To help people grow, Kevin says this. He says, the first thing that I do when I'm coaching someone who aspires to stretch, grow, and go higher in life is to have that person select one word that best describes him or her. And once that person does that, it's as if he or she has turned a page in a book and highlighted one word. Instead of seeing 300 different words on the page, the person's attention and intention is focused immediately on that single word, that single gift. And then what the individual focuses on expands. It's talking about finding something that you are naturally, innately good at, something positive about yourself, focusing on it and raising the level of that even higher. That will help build your sense of self. So try that. It will tell you a lot. The word you pick will tell you a lot about how you think about yourself. And if it's a negative word, you need a new word. There's definitely something positive about you. I guarantee it. Take responsibility for your life. This is what emotional maturity is all about, emotional intelligence. Listen, you may not be the person who got you where you are today, meaning it could have been a really stupid decision on someone else's part, pain brought into your life that was not your fault, but you are still responsible. Hear what I'm saying. You need to make a response. You are able to respond. Responsible. You got to take ownership of what you're going to do next. Because we tend to get in life what we're willing to tolerate. I learned years ago that if we think it's okay to be overworked and underpaid, guess what's going to happen? If you don't have a plan and a purpose for your life, someone else will make one for you. And it will probably be you helping them for very little return. Take responsibility, take ownership. It's not okay to be overworked and underpaid. Expect better. No one will take advantage of you. If they try, you'll have a self-image strong enough to recognize it. All right, if you're not on my mailing list, make sure you go to christynarcy.com. I've got some cool freebies for you. I would love for you to download things that will add value to your life, help you grow in all of this. To activate these things that we just talked about, that was a lot. There's a lot of one-liners in there. Go back, listen, write the best ones down, ones that resonated with you. But here's some ways that you can overcome. Here's some growing pains. Let's talk about some points of pain in your journey to raise your emotional intelligence. Make a list. Make a list of your best personal qualities. You can do it. You need to do it. Make a list of your best qualities. Review that list daily and add more as your awareness of yourself rises. It's okay to talk about what's good about you. It's known that self-talk has a powerful effect on those who practice it. Negative self-talk to the negative and positive self-talk to the positive. We want positive in our lives, positive results. So we need positive self-talk. Write down some positive self-talk narratives that you can review each day. So if you're trying to increase your emotional intelligence in one area where you say, you know what, I don't want to respond, I don't want to over emote in that area again. So I'm going to make a positive statement that says, when this trigger happens, I'm going to respond with happiness. I'm going to meet stress with cheerfulness. That's what I do. I do that. Write that down. Let that be yours. And then step into it. Find a place to display positive statements about yourself that you can read every day. And track how often you practice positive self-talk. You are the only one responsible for this, and you're the only one that can do it. And you've got to do it, because if you don't have, again, a high value for yourself, no one else is going to have a high value for you, and you won't be able to add value to others. Make specific scheduled time every day to focus on other people. Do this too, right? Write down other people's positive qualities and find a way to mention these things to them. What do you love about your spouse? What's positive about your kids, about your boss? I remember I went to this training seminar one time about event planning, and the gal that was giving the training, she was an executive assistant, very, very successful to a very successful man who was just a jerk. I mean, a jerk. And coming to work every day was miserable and awful for her. But she really wanted to expand her career. She really wanted to just not leave until she knew she gave it her best. And so every day she would come into work and she would think, okay, I got to find one thing I like about this guy. If I can find one thing I like, I'll have a positive day. And when he's being a jerk, I can just focus on that one thing. Well, he had really great taste in ties. He had great ties. He looked good in a tie. And he had a nice tie. He had a great collection of ties, right? And so every day she'd just look at his tie when he was being a jerk. Wow, that's a nice tie. I really like that tie. It's a really good tie. I mean, it's hard to be negative when you're being positive about something, right? You know what's happening when you take situations like that, when you're working for people that are belittling and difficult, you want to vibe your way out of that, okay? With high vibes. You keep your vibes at a gratitude level. You keep your vibes at that's a nice tie level, even though you're a jerk, but hey, you got a nice tie. When you keep your vibes like that, what you actually end up doing is positioning yourself in a place where you will perceive your way out in a positive way. You are actually building your own way out. People don't realize that. When we're negative and angry because we're working for a jerk and we feel like everyone else is getting ahead and we're not, it starts to show up in our performance. It can't not. It can't not do that, right? We're reaping what we're sowing. We're getting a harvest of negativity because we go into work every day miserable and pissed off. Notice his tie. And I'm telling you, what will happen is gratitude like that in your life is something this is why God loves a cheerful giver, by the way. When you give reluctantly, what do? You're sowing seeds of reluctance and lack. But when you give cheerfully, God, I trust you. I know that you have all the resources and that your resources are mine and available to me. And you're going to take care of this. And so I'm just going to give to this person in need. And I'm just going to do it with a heart of abundance. When you apply that same principle to the difficult people around you, you can't not get into a better position. You can't not. It's not how God made the universe. It's not how he made it work. You will reap what you sow every time. It doesn't, good or bad. You either make it work for you or against you. But if I'm telling you, if you're in a bad job and you just have a sour attitude and you hate your life every single day, man, you are just only going to get out of that what you sow. So, and really, you don't want to take all that crap into the next job anyway. And if you have all that crap, you're just going to find a crappy job the next time around. So that's not a good way to deal with things. Be positive. It's hard to be positive when in your heart you don't believe good things about yourself. So you got to find an anchor point, a baseline. For me, even when I have made mistakes, I've been over-emoting, I'm feeling like I'm not managing PTSD well, depression well, anxiety, mental health in general, when I feel like I'm not, whatever the case is, right? My baseline that I come back to is always the gospel of peace. It's my identity in Jesus. What does that mean? It means that in him, this is already fixed. The old has gone, the new has come. You guys remember we talked about put on, put off. I'm going to put off all of those failures and negativity. I'm going to put on the new man who's been remade in Christ. I'm going to remember that that's the real me. The real me is not the ugly part. The real me is the good part. And I'm going to start functioning in it. It is really hard to do if you don't have that base of belief. I think that's probably where most people struggle with depression is if they don't know Jesus, they don't have a baseline for knowing how good they really are. How can they compare? How can they know they're a good person? So, not just a good person, but completely and totally right with God. What's right with God is right with us. That's how the gospel of peace works. So, hope this helped you. You'll hear me say add value. I hope it added value to your life. That is leadership, by the way. Leadership is influence. What is influence? Adding value to others. We add value to others so that they can add value. They can multiply value to others. That's how life works. So I want to add value to you so that you can build up your self-image and your sense of self and your dignity and your worth, and that you can then multiply that value to other people. So love you guys. Super excited. Talk to you soon.